Learning Perek Halacha Zayin of Hilchos Chametz U'Matzah. The Rambam says, Chometz Pesach Kol Shu also. Now we'll go to the Peirush Chometz Pesach Kol Shu. The bold is the Rambam. Is also Torah. It's forbidden min Torah. This is where we're going to learn why Chometz Pesach Poros Mekazayis is also. And when is the din of shiur said in all isurim? Shenema, it says, Rambam quotes a posuk, "V'lo yochel chometz." You shouldn't eat chometz. Al bikain eino chayav koros ekom. Even so, for less than a shiur of a kezayis, you're not chayav a koros, or if b'shoikik a korban, elo al keshir. Only for the measure that's the usual measure, which is shiur kezayis. Somebody who eats poros mikazayis amazing mak and oisei mak is mardas. Now, the Peirush says the Maggid Mishnah cites Yuma, Ein Gimel. Rabbi Yochanan said Chatzi shiur also min Torah. Why? He gives a reason, not a posuk. Even the chozil is tarufe, because you can add to the half that he ate another half. Isur kochel, thus he's eating isur. Therefore, it's also not Torah, even a chatzi zayis, the first half. By shloki shoma, chatzi shiur mutar min Torah. Min Torah, there's no isur on a half, because achila has to be a kezayis in a lot of times, we learned before, and therefore it's not considered achila less than that. We hold hadlochos Rabbi Yochanan in every isur ma'achol shebatorah. Now, the Kodesh of Mishnah has a question. Why does the Rambam bring a special limud, yochel? It technically is included in all the Yisurim Shabbat Torah. And possibly yochel would seem to be mashma, the exact reverse of what we're trying to prove. It has to be eating. And eating is usually a kezayis. And he doesn't answer it. Furthermore, he asks a question that the Rambam writes in the beginning, Chometz Pesach Kol Shu, which means the slightest amount, is also min Torah. And then he writes Poros Mekazayis B'Mezid Makan Oisei Makas Mardis, which is mashma that it has to be a certain measure, but not a kezayis. Why the distinction? And he answers that since at the beginning he wants to tell us that anything Yerchai is forbidden, therefore, at the end, he tells us that Marcus Maldus is only, the rabbinical Marcus lashes are only when he eats something which is worthy of the throat benefiting from it. And he explains that's poros mikazayis. But he asks further, what is the difference between one measure and the other? A, what's a kol shu and what's less than a kazayis? Secondly, where does the Rambam know to distinguish this, and he doesn't have a source to find it. The Mishnah Lamelach brings from the Gemara. The Gemara says, Tani kavos Rabbi Yochanan. In Vayikra it says kol chelev. Now where do we learn that every chatzi shiur is also? Because it says kol chelev. The word kol is extra to tell you that chatzi shiur, even a less than a kezayis of chelev, is forbidden. So Toys asks the question, why did Rabbi Yochanan need a svara of chozil and tzarufe? You have a posuk. What do you need logic for? It says kol chelev, and the answer, the posuk of kol chelev comes to tell you a different limud, which you need it for. Once we need it for that limud, we can't use it for this other limud. That kui, that's an animal which we're not sure whether it's a behemo or it's a chayo, and it's a suffix if its fat is mutter, because by behemo the fat is also, and by the chayo it's mutter. Therefore, kol chelev comes to tell you that it is forbidden when in doubt. If so, we don't have a posuk. Therefore, the chatzi shiur that is mentioned that you learn from kol chelev must be only an asmachta, something to rely on. But the main din of chatzi shiur is only the rabbanon. So it would seem that it's only the rabbanon. Therefore, the Gemara says, "This svara, what's the logic that Rachamim forbade it?" Because you might start eating and continue on, and therefore they don't need a posuk. And kol chelev is a droshe gemura for the isur chatzi shiur you don't have such a limud because Chol Chelev is used for something else. The Magi and the Mishnah Lamelech cites the Mishnah Lamelech Hilchos Shabbos that even b'meleches Shabbos that there is in every melacha a shiur to make one chayiv. Chatzi shiur is also minat Torah. Chatzi shiur is also minat Torah. And the question of the Gemara: Can you in Shabbos Ayin Daled is one permitted to cook less than a shiur because minat Torah there's no issur? Rashi says even though there's no chiyuv chatus, there's an issur. Because Chatzi shiur is also minat Torah, so we see that the Rashi learns minat Torah it's also. In the Magia, the one who edited the Mishnah Lamelech says that the Chacham Tzvi asked the question of Tosfos. The Tosfos would seem to say it's only the Rabbanan, and it would seem, according to that, the Chacham Tzvi, that for example, if a Nazir takes out, he's over if he takes out 2 hairs from his head, if he takes out only 1, or somebody who takes out from his reshus less than a shiur that is mentioned by food, if it's for an animal, it would be dependent upon what animal it was, etc. It shouldn't be because of Issur Torah, but it should only be because you can add to it another measure and it would be Osir. That we see Rashi and Agoras Ashri both disagree and say that Chatzi shiur Melocha is also minat Torah. So the Mishnah Melech says that from the Ran in Shavuos it would seem that Chatzi shiur is also l'atzarufi. You need it because if we would learn it only from the posuk of Kol Chelev, we wouldn't know by other Yisurim, because we would say it's Exeas HaKosvu b'Chelev only. Shechatzi shiur is also. But after we learn from Yochanan and the Svara, it's also because Chozi l'atzarufi, this rule of Kol Chelev applies to all the Yisurim. And the Halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan, and that's the way all the Poskim paskin. Therefore the Maggid Mishnah asks the question, why does the Rambam need to learn by Chometz? If that's the case, by all Yisurim, Chatzi shiur is also minat Torah. Why does he need a special posuk lo yeyochel? It would be learned from Kol Chelev, and we learn it. Furthermore, lo yeyochel seems to be the exact opposite of telling us that less than a full shiur is also. We should learn from there only a kezayis. So the Mishnah Lamelech says that the Ralbach asked this question, and he explains, since Chometz is mutter before Pesach, therefore the Rambam needed to learn a special limud by Chometz, which we could not learn from Kol Chelev, because I would assume that it doesn't apply to Chometz, which is mutter a whole year. According to this, on the 14th day, which from the 6th hour, the midday, it's also. There would not be an Issur on Poros Mekeshir, because Le'yochel, that posik that we learn in Chometz is also with any amount, is only referring to Pesach itself. And therefore it could be that it was Medayik, the Rambam was Medayik, and he writes, Ha'oichel Chometz Pesach, only Bimei Pesach, there's an Issur Poros Mekeshir. But from the 6th hour and further, there's no Issur minat Torah, and he's not loike makis mardis. On the question that the Kassav Mishnah asked, the Rambam should not have to learn from Le'yochel, because we have Kol Chelev, just like Ezer Chatzi shiur everywhere else. The Chassam Sofer has a different answer in his Chidushin to Psochim. From Kol Chelev we learn only those things which you can add to the Chatzi shiur. But somebody put something before in his mouth right before the end of Pesach, a half a shiur of Chometz, and there won't be time to eat another half a shiur on Pesach because Pesach will end. Here there should not be an Issur of Kol Chelev. However, the Rambam learns from Le'yochel that even when you can't possibly add to it, it's also minat Torah Chatzi shiur. The Chassam Sofer, of course, is talking in a very unusual situation. There were other achronim that want to say that Chozi l'tzarufi Doesn't have to be an actual situation, but it's a svora. Since it will eat twice that shiur, it'll be chayim and atira. Therefore, you can't say that in a chatzi shiur there's no issur. Because the issur is only when he eats it together. You don't say that. You say al-vadai, certainly, even in chatzi shiur, narration is an issur. Chotzlat Sarufi is only a sign by which we rely on our whole kezayis. Therefore, wherever it's also menatorah to eat, it's also to eat gam chatzi zayis menatorah. The Ralbach wants to explain why the Rambam needs a special posuk here, and also that lo yochel would seem to be only a kezayis and not a chatzi shiur. That stam achilo kezayis. The Torah says isur b'odam oichel. It says lo yisoichal or lo yoichal. The isur is on the person. When it says v'posik lo yeochel with a tzera, so then the inference is to the thing itself should not be eaten, and thus it means even less than a kezayis, because even regarding the thing, it's partially eaten. Somebody bit out of it. Secondly, since we learn from lo yeochel yisar, therefore it's also b'chol shu. Since we learn like our avu that lo yochel means yisar and benefit you have from even the slightest amount. Therefore, kol shu, he has to make a bracha because he benefits. So you see that kol shu is also menatorah. But we still have a problem. Why don't we learn that you get malchus on chatzi shiur? Because it says lo yochel. Certainly by other yisurim you learn from kol chelev, and you learn chatzi shiur is also menatorah, but you don't have malchus. But the Chometz, if you have a special posuk, why shouldn't you get malchus? And he answers, since the posuk comes only for isa achilo and not la'ano, you don't get malchus on the ano alone, and chatzi shiur would be also only because of your deriving benefit, but not because you're eating. The Ramach asks a question. It says lo yeochel, from lo yeochel you shouldn't have less than a kezayis, just as we asked before. The Re'im, Rabbi Mizrachi, says she'oichel chometz b'pesach, even kol shu he's over isur menatorah, because it says lo yeochel chometz. He's not chayav kores or korban, because the oinshim are designated halacha l'Moshe Sinai, and there's no oinish until you eat a kezayis. But it's called achilo, and therefore there's an isur Torah even less than a kezayis. He says, why then does the Gemara have to say the reasoning of chozilat starufi? If it's because it's called eating, and according to his svara, it would be also because it's called eating, just that we know that in Torah we have a Kabbalah Moshe Sinai, you don't get malchus for less than a kezayis. So he explains that the Gemara comes to tell us that even though Halacha Moshe Sinai you only get malchus for shiur sholem, but you're over on the isur of half because chozilat zarufi, and there's an isur even with poros mikashir. According to the Re'im, that eating is even when you eat less than a kezayis. We understand to answer the Kesef Mishnah and the others why lo yochel means eating. Eating, we eat even a poros mikashir. The only thing that it brings about punishment is when you eat a complete shiur, which is according to Halacha Moshe Sinai. But one that still transgresses even on a chatzi shiur. According to the Re'im, the difference will be that Erev Pesach, from the 6th hour, one will be chayiv on poros mikashir, will be also menatorah, because achilas kolshu is called an achila and it's also. Not like the way the Ralbach wanted to learn, that since we learned from the posuk lo yochel, Erev Pesach would not have an isur of chatzi shiur, and thus we conclude Halacha Zayin, and Mi'ez Hashem, in the next year we'll learn Halacha Ches.